There's an old saying that I really do love. It's basically this: you either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. And it turns out Nintendo is taking the former rather than the latter very seriously. Yeah, because for some reason, I don't understand why, but Nintendo's unchecked greed this generation has been reaching brand new heights. And it has been something very insane to see that a company that used to be someone that would go around and provide you affordable products at a good price has turned into the same exact company that is now raising prices exponentially, turning around, no longer offering you the actual game on the cart, forcing you to be always online, and even banning specific devices that you've already purchased if they don't like how you're acting on their service, or if you decide to use a different cartridge altogether. And the thing is, everybody on the internet has been truly documenting what has been going on with Nintendo. And besides the insane rabid fanboys, people are really not amused with their behavior. The thing is, though, it tends to get even worse, apparently, as this channel always tends to point out. Because I've had my criticisms of Nintendo Switch 2 in the past, and one of those criticisms was, in fact, the game keycard issue. The fact that many people are not going to be happy simply buying a blank keycard, forcing them to go online to download the game, when in reality what people want out of the Nintendo products is to own them physically, especially rabid Switch collectors. The problem, though, is that we have seen third-party publishers and even developers state that putting their games onto game keycards has not really been the best thing for them, and sales on third-party games have been stagnant, and that could be a reason for it. Now, granted, I have stated that the person who said these statements was Christopher Dring, who I don't really trust very often with how he says things. The difference, though, is Nintendo did talk about their game keycards in an annual shareholder meeting, and things did not go exactly as planned. During an annual shareholder meeting via N-Styles and Genki Japan, an investor mentioned hearing that third-party games don't sell well on Nintendo Switch 2 hardware. They also expressed concerns regarding game keycards, calling them a half-baked solution and not very appealing. They asked whether game keycards will deter people from buying third-party games. In its response, Nintendo said that the Switch 2 game keycards don't contain the game content itself, rather a key for activation. The company clarified that a download is required when playing the game for the first time. It mentioned that the system was adopted because the internal storage capacity is larger than that of the original Switch. Furthermore, Nintendo assured its investors that it will make efforts to ensure that third-party Switch 2 software is able to sell. And in my opinion, the entire game keycard issue is mostly due to Nintendo's pure greed. And that theme is going to be showing up quite often in this video. You see, it costs Nintendo less money to go ahead and make just blank keycards to provide you a link to download the game and put that game on your system directly, which, yeah, sure, you could possibly do something like that. But again, it is incredibly anti-consumer to go through and not even provide developers and publishers an actual game keycard that would provide them with the proper size storage for that directly. We've seen the leaks go around that there's only 2 options for developers. In fact, 3 options. There's digital download only, the game keycard, and the 64 gigabyte keycard as well. That's basically it. So if you're a smaller publisher or you're a smaller developer, or you have a game that doesn't take up much space, you're either going to do one of 3 options. You're going to spend the extra money to Nintendo to get a 64 gigabyte keycard and have that be the cost that you pay for every game that you ship physically, or you go the cheaper route and do digital only, or you do the game keycard as well for an online digital download, basically just relegating you to one side specifically. And it always gets worse, though, because the thing is, even though that the game keycard is being put out without anything physical on it specifically, or the game itself, games are still costing $70 to $80 up front, especially digital ones. There's no price point, there's no breakdown. It is pure unadulterated greed being passed around to you as a consumer and customer to foot that bill. And it becomes even worse because apparently now Nintendo is going around and putting a stop to Amazon third-party sellers who are selling the Switch 2 at lower prices. According to Bloomberg, Nintendo has stopped Amazon US sales as third-party sellers were offering games lower than advertised rates. It's really shocking to me how anyone trying to save an actual penny or even go through and provide a better experience for the customer gets shut down immediately by Nintendo. I don't understand why this company can get away with all these things directly, but there's more to this than actually meets the eye. Transformers. I think it's honestly ridiculous that Nintendo is now trying to control the pricing of every single outlet that sells their hardware directly to customers and consumers. I understand that third-party sellers can be a bit of a pain in the ass to work with, especially when third-party sellers overprice items and products, but the difference is they're selling it at a lower price, which means that in reality, these prices that Nintendo is charging shouldn't be that way in the first place, especially for their hardware or even their games. It turns out Nintendo of America were displeased that third-party sellers on Amazon were selling video games for lower prices than Nintendo had advertised. They did this by buying games in bulk from Southeast Asia and exporting them to the United States for cheaper than recommended retail price. Amazon seemingly failed to stop this from happening, so Nintendo decided that the best solution from their point of view was to stop selling their products on Amazon.com. Both companies have denied the Bloomberg report. Another quote from the article said this: Amazon tried to assuage Nintendo by offering to attach labels to products that guarantee they're authentic. Amazon uses that technique to assure shoppers products aren't counterfeits and to help it track merchandise. But the offer wasn't sufficient, the person said, and Nintendo ultimately opted to pull its products from Amazon in the US. Now here's the real interesting part. I went ahead and decided to check this directly, and when I went onto Amazon, I can see Switch 2 games being sold, but I can't see any Switch 2 consoles being sold, which is incredibly interesting, which makes a lot of sense directly. So it could be the fact that they pulled the Switch 2 console from sale on Amazon, but not the games directly, because even when I go to the direct brand, I can see Most Wished For and only see Switch 2 games. And even then, when I search for the console specifically, none of the actual Switch 2 consoles show up. I only get the Nintendo Switch 1 with a Mario Kart 8 Deluxe bundle, 3 months of Nintendo Plus, and a 120GB SD card. So I don't see anything here that is in fact a Switch 2. I see the Switch 1 OLED, the OG LCD Switch, but nothing on the Switch 2 console specifically. So this report from Bloomberg could be true, and it could be the fact that Nintendo was not happy with Switch 2 consoles being sold below cost via third-party sellers on Amazon's website directly. Now, I'm not entirely sure what this actually means or if the Switch 2 console will be back on sale for Amazon, but the thing is, this goes to show how far Nintendo could possibly be willing to go in order to go through and stop people from getting their consoles or even their games at cheaper prices overall. The fact that this third-party seller was able to go ahead and provide enough of a sales purchase from those consoles in Southeast Asia to pass forward a discount to you, the customer, and still make a profit goes to show that, one, Nintendo is raking you hand over fist with the cost of this console, even though I have said before that this console seems to be in line with pricing in terms of pricing between the Steam Deck OLED and the Steam Deck itself. Granted, like I said, I would have preferred $399 and an OLED panel, but instead we get $449 and an LCD panel. The unchecked greed of Nintendo continually shows no bounds of stopping. We're no longer in the era where Nintendo would do good by you, the customer and consumer. They're now doing everything they can to penny pinch you directly, because Nintendo is now raising prices of the Nintendo Switch. One, a 7-year-old device is now getting a price increase. No, I'm not kidding. According to Hazardor Gaming, here is the tweet specifically. Nintendo confirms to raise prices for products and services in Canada due to quote-unquote market conditions. The Switch Lite, the Switch OLED, Nintendo Switch Online, Switch physical and digital games, Switch accessories, amiibos. The Switch 2 price remains the same. And just so you're definitely aware, this is not a joke, here is the actual website that showed the Switch 1 is getting these price increases in Canada. Not only the console that's over 7 years old, but also the games, the online service, the amiibos, and everything else in between. It is incredibly shocking to me that Nintendo would go so far to raise the price of their consoles in Canada, which means that everywhere else may in fact be seeing a price increase very soon. The reason why I bring this up specifically is because it ties directly to that Bloomberg report of Nintendo removing their Switch 2 consoles from Amazon being sold, especially in the US. Nintendo has become a massive, greedy corporation, doing everything they can to squeeze every dollar out of your pocket and and providing you nothing back in return. The fact that this company has gone through and done a complete 180 from their previous consoles goes to show that they are doing nothing more than capitalizing on your nostalgia. Thanks to Nintendo, games are now $80 a pop. Thanks to Nintendo, it is literally almost impossible to now find a console at a cheaper price. And the fact that a 7-year-old device with an X1 Tegra chip processor that is even older than it was when it originally launched is now getting a price increase goes to show that Nintendo really is one of now the worst of the worst in terms of greed. This cannot continue consistently, and the excuse is being levied at Nintendo all the time simply because they make you happy as an adult really knows no bounds. The fact that this company gets defended more and more every single day, the fact that this company consistently goes around and abuses that entire defense by its own people every single day, and the fact that Nintendo fanboys will turn around and cheer for this company selling more consoles than ever before simply because of the fact that it says Switch 2, and then defend those scummy practices, even though the LCD on the Nintendo Switch 2 console is worse than the Steam Deck directly, which has been proven multiple times. That most of the third-party games now do not come on the cartridge, restricting you to only being a digital purchaser and consumer. The fact that every single time we hear about Nintendo making news now recently, it is over and over of nothing but anti-consumer, bad behavior, and bad practices from this company simply getting a pass because of the fact that it has the words Nintendo on the box. And no, I'm not kidding about that defense, because look at Forever Sandorian right here, who's been in this content before, saying Canada rescinds digital services tax after Trump cuts off U.S. trade talks. It's not about the fact that Nintendo can easily afford these kinds of trade talks and taxes. It's the fact that Nintendo is now passing on that cost from their products to you. And it's proven before exactly in this video prior, with them removing the fact that Switch 2 being sold on Amazon at a cheaper price from a third-party seller is not impacting them at all, and they're making money and profit hand over fist from every Switch 2 sold. They could have easily lowered the cost of the Switch 2 to make it more affordable, but instead they're passing every expense onto the customer and absorbing none of it altogether. And to call it misinformation, even though they directly stated it from their own websites, they will be increasing those prices due to market conditions, really is the more hilarious part about all of this. The gawk 9000ing of this company never ceases to be. I'm going to age myself with this, but back in my day, console prices would go down, especially after the third year, because it would be less cost to manufacture them in general, and of course the market will be saturated with them, and people would need a better reason to purchase them. Now we're seeing the opposite, where over time, console prices now increase, and the only way to actually get a deal is to buy the product day one, and then you'll save money that way, even though the company is still charging you an exorbitant amount of money for that console or product in the very launch of its existence. I don't understand how this is a good idea overall. Usually what should happen is these prices should decrease over time, especially having the console that is a Switch 1, the precursor to the Switch 2, have a system and a chip and components that are in fact far older and far weaker than what they're currently manufacturing right now. This should have been an easy slam dunk for Nintendo, basically just not even change the price at all. But instead they chose the opposite, to raise the price, to remove third-party sellers, to no longer give you access to physical games, and say, hey, look, sorry, you get one of two options, publisher or developer. Either give us way more money for this cart or put it on a digital cart directly, and that's all the customer gets outside of their own pocket. And that is insane to see. I do not know the lengths of what this company will do in terms of in the future of being even greedier than they already can be. But unfortunately, I feel like Nintendo has just started this process, and we're going to see steps that are going to be even worse in the future. My expectation, we're going to see the Switch 2 increase in price as well. I wouldn't bet to see if that console is $499 without a pack-in game like Mario Kart World. And then games just flat out costing $80 to $90 directly. Using the excuse of variable pricing will basically mean if you have nostalgia for the game, we're just going to charge you more for it. Pulling the old Disney Vault approach, which really is some of the worst things to see, and watching people and fanboys and even consumers and customers bend over, prolapse their wallets, and just expect Nintendo to reach in to the back of their molars and rip out every red cent from their pockets they can, is the more disgusting behavior overall. I can't believe that people do not have a spine in today's day and age, and it really is is disgusting to watch. The excuses, the hand waving, the nonchalant behavior of all this, it really goes to show that the more these companies think they can take advantage of you, they absolutely will. And the scarier part is that people are accepting of it, which is really the more disheartening thing of all of this. Look, I've grown up with Nintendo my entire life. I played on their systems for a very, very long time, all the way up until the GameCube and then back again on the Switch 1. But the difference is that Nintendo has to earn your dollar. They don't simply get it because they're not a charity. And holding your nostalgia hostage is not a good way to earn that dollar either. Now, I want to hear what you guys have to say in the comments section down below. Are you basically done with Nintendo like I am? Are you waiting for an emulator to come out? Because I sure as hell am. Or are you still going to go ahead and give them money? Hopefully, it's going to be the former and not the latter. If you like this kind of content, you want to see more, we also have PC port reviews, gaming news, Steam Deck videos, fanboy content, and hot takes in the gaming industry like this as well. So if you want to see that, subscribe to the channel. We're on our way to 86,000 subscribers, and I just want to say thank you guys so very much. It really does mean the world to me. If you want to go ahead and get Discord access or most during live streams, become a YouTube member. It's as low as $1. If you don't want to spend the buck, look, don't sweat it. Saturday nights, 8:45 p.m. Eastern, I live stream every Saturday on this channel, and it's a hell of a show. Trust me, you don't want to miss it. With all that being said, though, thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you have a great one, and I'll see you gooners next time. Peace!